Way back in 1987, Atari launched these, the Atari Megafile, which was an Atari hard disk solution for the more serious ST user. Now, unless you were a serious ST user back in the day, the chances are you haven't encountered one of these. And if you want to get your hands on one now, they are getting quite hard to come by, certainly in working and good condition. So hopefully you'll enjoy joining me as we have a good look at the two models that I've got, which are in remarkably good and working condition. So hopefully by the end of this you'll be able to make a decision whether it's worth trying to track one of these bad boys down or whether it's better to perhaps just go with a modern emulator. So let's start off with having a good look around and inside them. But before that, a quick thank you for the sponsor of this video, PCB Way. Whether you are starting out in soldering or a seasoned tinkerer, PCB Way have something to offer you. With literally thousands of projects to inspire you, there is sure to be something there. With PCBs starting from as little as $5, the quality, as you can see, is truly excellent. But they don't just offer PCBs, oh no. They also offer CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, and if, like me, you don't own a 3D printer, then they also do 3D printing. So don't forget to check them out. There is a link in the description. Thank you to PCB Way for sponsoring this video. Now I've got two hard disks here to show you from the Megafile range. The bottom one is one of the earliest versions which doesn't yet have the Megafile branding name. This was labelled the SH205, which was a 20 megabyte hard disk, the SH standing for ST line hard disk, before it later became rebranded as Megafile to join in with the Mega ST range of computers that were available at the time. And it's no coincidence they've adopted the identical same form factor as the Mega STs. Whereas before this there was an earlier hard disk launched for the ST that was called the SH204, which didn't have this form factor. It was more of a shoebox type design. So you can see how it's progressed in both form factor and the brand identity. Now before we start opening them up and having a look inside, it's worth mentioning that these were seriously expensive back in the day. The SH205 that we've got here had a launch price, I believe, of £499, which equates to approximately £1,200 today. And if you wanted to go for the top of the range, the Megafile 60 with a whopping 60 megabytes of storage, then that was going to set you back £1,000, which in today's money is somewhere in the region of £2,400. So serious prices for serious bits of kit. And certainly explains why, as much as I saw the advertisements of these in the magazines and really wanted one, I certainly never managed to get my hands on one back in the day. So anyway, that aside, let's have a good look around them. So this is the SH205 with the early branding. And on the front, there really isn't much going on. We've got a power light and a disk activity light, but that really is it. Looking around the back then, there's a little bit more going on, but not too much. We've got a power switch. We've got the traditional kettle type plug. I don't know what you call that plug, but I call it a kettle type plug. We've got the Atari DB19 connector there for out to go to the ST, and then we've got another one coming in so we can daisy chain more units together. So if, like me, you've got more than one, or you've got the Atari laser printer, you can connect more than one device and daisy chain them together. So we've got the in and outs going on there, and in the middle there we've got ventilation for the cooling fan, which is sat behind it. If you're wondering what this little trap door is on the top, then wonder no more. It is nothing. Essentially, it is exactly the same chassis as for the Mega STs. And if you had a Mega ST, this is where you would put your batteries for the battery backup. But on the Megafile, it's the same case, other than it doesn't have a disk access port on the front. But this serves no purpose whatsoever. So no doubt part of Atari's cost saving and streamlining. Why reinvent the wheel? Getting access to inside the case, we've got it flipped over here, is pretty straightforward as you would probably expect. We've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 screws, and then we should be in. So with those screws removed, the lid comes off nice and easily, like so. And as per all Ataris of this area, they were built like a tank with all this RF shielding. So next thing we need to do is get this off, which isn't too bad. We just need to twist off these tabs and it should all come off nice and steady. So with a bit of a gentle persuasion, this should now come off, which it does. So inside here, we've obviously got the hard disk, which in this case is the 20 megabyte Tandem TM262, which apparently has a throughput speed of around 0.6 of a megabyte, which ain't exactly a lot, is it? But for the time, it was more than acceptable. At the back, we've got a control board. The hard disk itself doesn't have any method of controlling it, whereas looking at the later SATA drives, as we've got here, the controller board is integrated into the disk unit itself. And this is different. All that's on the hard disk, and I'm not going to dismantle this because I really don't want to do anything which is likely to jeopardise its longevity, as it were. Everything to control the disk is on this board here. So there's quite a reduction in size as technology has advanced. This being a 5 1/4 disk drive here. And the controller board is something that's unique to Atari. Rather than using the emerging standard of SCSI as it was back then, Atari did their own cut down version of it, which they called ASCI. I think that stood for Atari Small Computer Interface. Now this was, like I say, a cut down version of the SCSI instruction set. It did use some of the same instructions, but Atari tweaked it to their own liking, reducing cost being a part of that. One thing that was quite beneficial of Atari's own unique standard was it didn't require termination, so you didn't have to set the last item in the chain to be set to terminate. This would be self-terminating and self-assigning, so it was meant to be plug and play. You daisy chained as many as you wanted to, which I believe from the Megafile instructions was in theory up to 8, but they suggested no more than 4, which may be due to signal loss over cable length. I don't know, but they recommend no more than 4. And you could plug in other things as well, like the laser printer as well, which would also daisy chain into the back of this. Now, I've obviously been in the back of here and I've replaced the fan, and hence this connection all looks a little bit different to what you would see if it was completely stock. But this is the only change that I've made, swapping out the fan. And I did that to try and A, improve cooling inside the machine with a better modern Noctua fan, and B, hopefully reduce some of the noise a little bit, because when these guys are spinning, it's quite noisy. Admittedly, most of the noise does come from the hard disk itself, but anything that I can do to reduce the noise, improve cooling, and therefore hopefully improve the lifespan of the disk, then that has to be a good thing. Now this is the original fan that was in machine, and I was just glancing at it and I realised that the way it was set up, as you can see perhaps from all the dust and stuff, this was designed in such a way that it was to be bringing air in and therefore blowing out the top through the vents. And I've realised that I've made a mistake when I've put this. And I've put the fan in the wrong way around. The way I've got this, it's set to exhaust out the back. Now, whether that's going to make a big difference or not, I don't know. But the fact that it's designed in such a way as to have the air being drawn in and exhaust out the top, I would suggest is the proper way to do it. So I am going to swap that round and do it the proper way. So just be mindful, if you're doing the same as me, you might want to make sure that you're drawing the air in rather than blowing it out the back as it was originally designed for. So that wasn't too difficult. Let me know in the comments if you think it'll make a big difference or not. I'm just a bit cautious about things like that, as I know heat build-up will reduce the lifespan of the disc, and these discs are on borrowed time as it is. I also strongly suspect if I've done this in this one, I've probably done the same in the other one. So we will have a look in the other one. So I'll put this back together and then we can have a look in the Megafile 60 as well. So back now with the Megafile 60 this time, let's have a quick look inside this one. So in the 60 we've got the Sega ST277R, which is an RLL hard disk, which same controller again. We've got the power supply board, and I'll need to turn that fan around because once again I've got that exhausting. But this one's got a higher throughput speed of around 1 megabyte a second, or just under. So a little performance gain from having the bigger disc there. But everything else is pretty much the same. So let's get this fan swapped round. Well, with that, I think I'm quite happy. We can get this put back together and then look to get these linked up in serial and see how that goes. So connecting these up to the Atari ST isn't too complicated, and we have here a DB19 cable. These are really hard to come by. These are almost as hard to get your hands on as a working Megafile, and because of that they are really expensive. I think I paid around £55 for each of these cables, and I needed two, so quite expensive, but relatively straightforward. But two ports, one labelled in, one labelled out. The in is the one that needs to go to the Atari ST. So if we just had the one, that's the point that you need to connect on, and the other end into the Atari ST. But because I've got two and we're going to chain them, I need to connect from the in of what's going to be the second drive into the out, which is going to be my first drive, and then I will go on and connect the bottom one to the Atari ST, and then I just need to screw these in just to secure them in place. Now, if everything's gone according to plan, when you go to power it up, we should get some activity lights, and we're going to notice just how loud these machines are. So that's the top one on. looking good. And I'll just take my microphone and put it near the hard drive as we start the other one up. Let's put the microphone nearby. Oh, the microphone picks that up. They are quite noisy. Hence why I tried to put a quieter fan in, but it's the drives that are making the noise, and there's nothing you can do with that. Right, so let's fire the ST up and hopefully it will recognise that them there. You do need to turn the hard disk on first, of course. And yeah, we've got 2 drives recognised. And there we go. So if you have gone and got yourself a Megafile, the first thing you are going to want to do is install the drivers for it, because without them, there's no way of the ST communicating with it. And I used this originally. It's the proper Atari hard disk drive utilities, and I ran into problems with it. So I used a different program which I paid for and downloaded off the internet, HD driver. I will, if I remember, include a link for that in the description, but I found that much better. I found it much better not only for getting everything set up, but all the partitioning and everything else. I just found that worked better for me, but you see what works for you. I'm not going to go through all that in this video. I did cover all that in one of my earlier videos, so have a look back on my video history if you're wanting to do that. There's much more detail in there, and you'll see the problems that I had using the Atari software. Now, as well as the obvious advantage of having loads of space to save stuff and not worrying about floppy disks, there's also the added benefit of the throughput speed from the hard disk. And I'll just demonstrate that briefly by just loading a game up. These are hacked games, so bear with me. We'll just click through and then the game should start to load. It's worth remembering though that if you wanted to play games, the copy protection which comes with the games themselves usually stop them from booting from a hard drive. But there are sites out there that do have modified versions specifically designed to run from the hard disk. So that is something that will leave you to go and look for. But as you can see, the game's loaded instantly. Brilliant option where you've got multi-disc games. There's no disc swapping involved as well. So that's another consideration as well, of course. So having seen all that, the only question left to ask is, should you get yourself one? Well, considering these are now pretty hard to find in good working condition, they're noisy, and when you do find one, they are rather expensive. Oh, and the drive's probably going to fail at any point in the near future, if it hasn't already, then the answer has to be yes. If you are an Atari ST fan like me, then there is nothing better than one of these sat at the side of your Atari ST, or even better, sat underneath your Mega ST. So I hope you enjoyed that. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. It really helps me out, and I hope I will see you in another video soon. Thank you. Bye for now.